One of the more common settings for anime is an alternate reality Earth where the world would be almost identical to our own with one or two tweaks to it. These could include taking place in the future after an apocalyptic event, the existence of superhuman monsters, the invasion of an alien race, or having technology being so advanced that it allows for things like time travel. This series in particular uses an alternate reality Earth to set up a terrifying premise, an 8.0 earthquake going off in the middle of Tokyo. The destruction would be immense, the death toll would be extremely high, and the survivors would be left with these intense feelings of depression and grief that would last for years. It's also somewhat eerie that this show is almost more relevant now than it's ever been, since the world has been plagued with natural disasters including the Japanese tsunamis that hit in 2011. So, hello and welcome to Anime Memories, and on this episode, I'm going to be talking about Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. The story begins with Mirai, a middle school student who's taking her younger brother Yuki to a robot exhibit. Partway through their visit, the earthquake hits, causing an incredible amount of damage to the city. With the help of Mari, a woman they met on the way to the exhibit, they attempt to make it back to their parents while trying to survive in the midst of aftershocks and a severe lack of food, water and healthcare supplies. The first thing that stood out to me when watching this is that Mirai starts off as an asshole, constantly whining about how her life sucks, that everyone around her sucks, and that every day is such a pain. I get that they wanted to have the earthquake be a reality check for her where she finally realises what's truly important, but they do it with no subtlety. The last line she says before everything goes to crap is, "The whole world could fall apart for all I care." Not only was this corny, it was unnecessary. Making it this abrasive doesn't enhance the be grateful for what you have message that they were going for. All it does is make the first episode a slog to get through. Now, after the earthquake takes place, she still does her fair share of complaining. However, at that point she's a lot more sympathetic since she now has something legitimate to be upset about, although she can still get really annoying at times. Luckily, the other members of the group fared a bit better, with Mari being my favourite. She acts as a pillar of strength that the kids desperately needed in order to overcome the trauma they suffered and find their way back home. Anyone who goes out of their way to help children in the way she does will get a lot of respect from me. Yuki, on the other hand, while being reasonably likeable, didn't connect with me that strongly since he's your fairly standard wide-eyed innocent 8-year-old. It also didn't help that he's used primarily as a plot device to give Mirai something to get worried over. Although I'm not going to lie and say I didn't care at all, since there were a few times when I got choked up when he was in serious trouble. In the visual department, there were certainly a couple of issues. The character designs were very basic and there was some bad CGI that stood out more than it should, but it managed to hold up in the parts that were the most important, the earthquake scenes. They looked just as violent as you'd expect, and they made me anticipate what would be the next structure to crumble or topple over. There was even one time where it looked like it was over and the worst was behind everyone. Then everything started shaking and I let out an audible, "Oh fuck." The backgrounds look great as well, with destroyed buildings, cracked pavement and rubble scattered all over the place, showing how massive the disaster was. The more engaging part for me though, is the mental toll that this experience has on the main characters. Being separated from their families would be taxing enough, but they don't even know if their families are alive, which gradually starts to chip away at them as they move further along in their journey. It seems like they spiral further downwards the closer they get to their destination, and towards the end, it becomes almost impossible for them to maintain their composure. Mirai's decline was particularly gripping, and I think the writers deserve a lot of praise for the ending of her character arc, which genuinely shocked me the first time I saw it. The anime also does a fantastic job at displaying the sheer size of the disaster by covering how it affected people outside of the main group. One scene that I'd like to highlight is when the protagonists walk into a church where there are dozens of people huddled over a series of dead bodies. Then when you think it couldn't get any more depressing, Mirai sees one of her classmates crying over a lost loved one and is so shocked that she just stands there, unable to say anything. Shortly after that, they also get to talk to a volunteer and hear his story about how he recently found out his grandchildren had passed. Despite dealing with a lot of emotional pain as he blames himself for their deaths, he still finds the motivation to keep helping others. While all of this was incredibly sad, it was also kind of uplifting. It shows the kind of strength that humans can have and the things that we can live through when we support each other. The last thing to talk about is the sound, and the dub was kinda weird. Whenever the tone was lighthearted, which was admittedly rare, the voice acting seemed uninspired and bland. However, during the drama, it improved significantly, which is very odd since you'd think the dramatic scenes would be harder to act in, but somehow they managed to succeed here. A similar phenomenon occurs with the music. Whenever it was upbeat or cheerful, it did absolutely nothing for me. However, during the earthquakes, the songs were great and they made the atmosphere even more anxiety-inducing. The soundtrack also worked much better during the aftermath. It added a lot more weight while delivering a somber and depressing mood. The only explanation I can think of is that the acting and music were always fairly average and were just being carried by the great dialogue. I could easily see myself ignoring flaws since I was really invested in what was happening, so take my comments about the sound with a grain of salt. You know, while I may have criticised the execution of the main message in here, watching this again genuinely made me feel grateful for what I have. I've got a nice home, my friends and family are all healthy, which is something that a lot of the people dealing with these natural disasters can't say. As you can tell, this had a significant emotional impact on me, and it's a story that I won't ever forget. If you also want to watch Tokyo Magnitude 8.0, it's available for streaming on Hulu, and the DVDs are available from Siren Visual if you live in Australia, and Section 23 Films in the US. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you have any feedback, please leave a comment, and if you want to see more, please subscribe as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.